right. So it happens a lot when we are starting to play steel guitar or Weissenborn guitar, that we go to get the bar tone, or it has different names, and we don't know which one to choose. We have different options. We have bigger ones. We have this type of bar, which is sometimes known as a tone bar or the bullet, okay? And then we have this other one with all this shape, okay? So usually many people start learning with this bar because when they try it, they find it easier to grab, okay? But things that you have to know is, well, first thing, this type of bar, you'll find it in different sizes, and you have to be careful. For instance, if you're getting like the typical Dunlop bar, the usual one for 6 strings is what they call the 918 bar, and then you'll find other ones that are bigger and heavier, etc. With just the 918 is enough. But now the main thing is concerning this type of bar or the other one. Now this one is good, you can play with it, but it's limited, okay? It's limited to certain things that you're gonna be able to do. Other things are gonna be more difficult to play with this type of bar, this one right here, and other things are gonna be impossible, okay, because of the tip, etc., etc. So personally, I always recommend to go to this bar and to start with this bar, okay? And even if you're already like a medium or advanced player, if you're still playing with the other one, I will still recommend you to switch to this one, because there are many different things that you can do, like when you are passing across the strings, you know, like this. With the other bar, it's gonna be more difficult and it doesn't flow really well because of the round tip, okay? And many other details that the more you learn, the more you're gonna find out. For instance, sometimes we play 2 strings just with the tip of the bar like this, totally perpendicular, yeah? So that's already impossible with the other bar to do. And I can find many examples that I'm not gonna take the time for it right now. It's just for you to be aware that one is more limited than the other one. So when it comes to holding the bar, okay, it's not very difficult, but you gotta get it right. Basically, you take index and middle, place the bar on top of it, and then hold it with the thumb. Basically, you're holding it with the thumb and the middle finger, okay? Just like that. And the index is on top, just to keep it down. Ring and little finger are used to mute the sound on the strings behind the bar, okay? And you don't need to make pressure with the hand. Usually with the hand's weight and the bar's weight is enough, okay? So you don't start getting with your shoulder up, just trying to press the bar and all those things, okay? We'll discuss later some things about the gauge of the strings, etc., which makes a difference, you know? So sometimes if you feel that you're not making pressure, it's not sounding good, maybe it's not a problem of how you hold the bar, but because it will be a problem more of the string gauge, etc. Playing with the left hand, there is something that many times many people don't learn or don't figure out on their own, which is we have a little help, okay, when we are trying to find out to guide ourselves on the fretboard, okay. Usually most people, they kind of feel like they should, you know where they are by the position of the bar, but there is a little help that we're gonna get always with the middle finger, okay? The middle finger is right next to the bar. It's about at the same height, the tip of the bar and the tip of the finger. So when we get down, especially when you're playing single strings that we're like leaning, we're raising the bar like this and just resting the tip of the bar. So basically here, it's very difficult if you're only trying to balance yourself with the tip of the bar. Okay, and even more difficult if you want to feel where you are. So that's something you do with the tip of the ring finger, of the middle finger. Okay, so the moment you move, you're feeling the string on your middle finger. Okay, and that's how you're gonna feel more solid and you're gonna control better where you are, especially when you switch single strings, okay? And also when you move up and down, etc. Not mentioning even that you're also muting the noise behind the bar with the tip of the finger when you're playing with your raised, with your bar raised. Another thing to keep in mind always is the gauge of your strings, you know, like what kind of strings you're gonna be using. I'm not talking here about the brand, but more about the gauge, how heavy they are. It's always nice to have on a Weissenborn or any steel guitar to have much tension on the strings, you know. It will make it more stable when you're moving with your left hand. Sometimes if the string doesn't have a lot of tension, it will still be in tune, but you're gonna run into two problems. One is that you're gonna get a lot of buzzing, you know, like you play a note and you hear that sound, and you will try to correct it pressing more, which is not the right way. So sometimes this thing is due because you don't have enough tension on the string, so you're not reaching the string, and the string is not resting against the bar, you know, with enough tension. The second one, and most common, and even worse, is that you're gonna feel like, especially when you play single strings, you're gonna feel like you're digging in the string, you know, the string is giving up, well, giving down actually, you know, and your bar is gonna just dig in. That would be more uncomfortable when you're playing. Also, depending on your guitar, if the nut is not very high, you're gonna start making more noise because you even get to hit the wood sometimes. Again, this is due because of the tension of your strings, yeah? So it's very important to get like a high tension. It also has to do with the tuning you're gonna be using, obviously. So if you have to choose one main tuning that you're using, even though you're gonna change later. But try to just always check your strings gauge with the tuning that you're gonna be playing with. Also be careful because a lot of tension is good, but sometimes one thing that happens is, especially on the 6th and the 5th string, some sets, they have so much tension for those strings that depending on your guitar, it's not gonna sound so nice. It's gonna sound good still, but too much tension is gonna shorten your sustain, and especially on those strings. So just keep an ear open for that, you know. And if you feel like when you play the 6th string doesn't ring a lot, or it feels like it's too tense, then you can either change just that string or just find a different set where the 5th and the 6th strings are not so high. When it comes to tuning, we can refer to two things: the tuning that we're using on the guitar and how to tune the notes. So I'm gonna give you a couple of details about both things, okay? There are many tunings for the steel guitar. You have to count that originally when Hawaiians started playing it, basically almost every family will use a different tuning. So they came out to be a lot of them. Then some tunings, they will have variations of their tuning. And if you look into it without knowing much, it's gonna feel like there are a lot of tunings and it's gonna be a lot of work to go through them and learn them. You know, it can be a little bit discouraging, but don't panic. Basically, there are some basic tunings that you learn with, and from those, the others are gonna be variations, okay? So basically, a variation can be just to add a different color to just one string. For instance, let's say we're working on a G open tuning with a low bass, or what is called a Taro Patch tuning in Hawaii, and we're tuning D, G, D, G, V, D from 6th to 1st, and we're gonna change the 4th string to E. That was gonna give us like a flavor of what we call in music a 6th or a 13th. It's just a tension that gives color. And sometimes it's used when you want to play styles and you want to sound more like swing or jazzy, etc., you know. So really changing from one to the other is not gonna be a huge difference. So again, don't panic. Now the important thing here is, where do I start? Like if I'm a beginner playing lap steel, what should be the first tuning I should just take and stick to it until, you know, I learn more? I highly recommend either the G low bass tuning or the A low bass tuning, okay? You know, you have the G or A high bass, which is more used in bluegrass, okay? But still, the G low bass is the most complete. It will also give you a great foundation when you want to switch to other tunings, like the high bass tuning or even other tunings. So what happens in the G tuning or A tuning, I have to say here, G tuning, low bass, and A low bass, they're exactly the same tuning, but just one is just one step higher than the other, okay? So what happens in these tunings is like, you're gonna be able to work on the top strings, playing melodies, harmonizing melodies, and playing chords. In the middle strings, you're gonna have a lot of nice chord combinations, and you have a very nice low register where you're gonna be able to play really nice bass lines, you know, and you're gonna have a big range and a lot of things available, okay? Any other tuning is gonna limit this whole scope a little bit. Not saying that that is a bad thing, you know, every style has a different way to go. But like I said, the best foundation usually is when you start with these tunings and then you can move to others and it's an easy switch. Now, the other kind of tuning that I was mentioning earlier was tuning the notes, you know, that's another challenging thing for beginners, you know. Always when you practice scales, like if you're in a G tuning, you're gonna start maybe with a G major scale. So there are two things that are gonna help you to learn how to tune well if you don't have a developed ear, you know, with these things. One thing is like, let's say that you're learning the scale. Always give you a reference and try to let it ring, you know, like you play the open G. That will give you a reference. And as you move forward, you won't need the reference, okay? And second and most important is, when you're a beginner, never use vibrato, okay? Vibrato is a very nice technique that we can use to embellish the sound of the notes, but when we are learning how to tune the notes, it becomes like a masking effect, okay? If we are not tuning properly and we start doing vibrato, we're just like covering our lack of good tuning, you know, just to put it that way. You know, so we don't want that actually. Okay, we want notes with no vibrato. Okay, because this way you will really learn to tune properly the notes. Otherwise, if you start doing the vibrato, you're not only gonna cover that, but you're also gonna fool yourself and it's gonna take you longer to really learn how to tune those notes. So when it comes to the right hand, we have different options. There are a lot of people that play without picks, just with their fingers, okay? It's fine, it's also more limited to certain things. And then you have picks, okay? So again, when you're playing only with fingers, without the finger picks, certain techniques, you won't be able to do them, or they will be more difficult to do. Also, you're gonna have less sound on your guitar. It's a very beautiful sound, the one you're gonna have, but if you're aiming to have a bigger dynamic range, you know, just being able to play very, very soft and super loud, the finger picks are gonna give you like a bigger dynamic range, you know, in order to do that. If you're playing only with bare fingers, it's gonna limit that, it's gonna narrow it, okay? And if you choose to use the picks, things that you have to know, you will see that you have plastic finger picks and metal finger picks. Know that the metal finger picks, they are a little bit brighter and they also make more noise. You know, when you touch the strings, you have this noise. When it's like metal strings, that noise is gonna be even louder, okay? So you have to be careful. In both picks, you have to also be careful on the thickness of the pick, okay? Because in both of them, you can find like very light, like not very thick picks and thicker ones. Usually I recommend to go for the thicker ones, okay? Because One thing is the sound they're gonna produce, but another thing is how comfortable you're gonna be with them. Now, one thing that happens with both picks is like they're never perfect for your fingers. So with the metal picks, it's easy to just bend it a little bit, okay? And that bending is gonna stay more where you left it if it's a thicker pick, okay? If it's too thin, the moment you start playing hard or moving the finger pick a little bit, and the material is gonna give up a little bit and they're gonna get loose, okay? Same thing with the plastic ones. You know, plastic ones, when you want to make them a little bit wider or something, it's gonna take you more than with a metal pick, but it's gonna be more reliable, you know? So always try to go for the thick ones, you know? Make sure you check that when you get your finger picks. Besides that, when you're playing the right hand, you know, on your lap steel, make sure you keep a good posture, you know, because right now we're not playing like on a standard guitar. And when we play with a flat hand like that, some people, they tend to bend too much your wrist, and that is gonna make the movements from the fingers a little bit more difficult, etc. So just be careful with that. Forward slant is when we are actually moving the bar and we're just turning it. It's not straight, it's not across the street, but we're gonna actually try to put the bar going towards parallel to the street, okay? So now this is one of the, not the most difficult, but one of the difficult techniques when you're learning the Weissenborn guitar. Don't panic again, you know, there's gonna be many things that you're gonna be able to play without having to do the forward slant, but sooner or later you're gonna want to learn it. And so a few tips when you're learning the forward slant is always, you have to learn how to do the movement with your fingers and never with your wrist and your arm. You know, some people, they will do the forward slant and they will start going like this with their arm, you know, or just with their wrist, which is even worse, you know. So just for you to see very quickly, what we do is we bring the thumb a little bit down, and then with the middle finger, with the tip, we're gonna just push the bar forward, okay? And like you can see right now, I'm not moving my elbow or my arm or even my wrist, you know, and I'm getting a pretty good forward slant, okay? And again, especially with this bar, don't try to hold to it too tight, you know, just let it move between your fingers, let it be a little bit loose, you know, just let it flow on top of the strings because it's meant to be like that. You're not meant to be like grabbing the bar and like really tight and controlling every single movement, okay? The backward slant is, for some people, it's a little bit more difficult than the forward. For others, they think it's about the same degree of difficulty. But anyway, there are different options, you know, like one of them is for some people, they will try to take the bar with the tip of the thumb, you know, all the way till the end of the bar, just like this, and move it like that, okay? Personally, I do that sometimes, but personally, and the technique I use, and I think is a little bit more fluent, is just basically you're pressing the bar with the index finger, you're pressing it back against this part right here on the hand between the index and the thumb, okay? And you let it slide, and you see as you let it slide, it's just gonna turn by itself, you know? All I'm doing here is just pushing back with the tip of my index finger. And after that, I just close my thumb a little bit just to hold the bar. So I have my normal bar here straight, and then I just press right there on the tip, and I got it. The other technique, just bringing the thumb back here, if it's a slow change and you have plenty of time, it's easier to do it. But for a very fast thing, it will probably not work. It will be very, very difficult. I mean, you can get to do it, but it will take you a lot of work, and you have other alternatives that are easier.